Hey folks, George here. In this series on the ethics and morality around medically assisted suicide and euthanasia, the next article we are going to examine is by Leon R. Kass, entitled, Why Doctors Must Not Kill. Kass starts with a very obvious question to him. Do you want your doctor to decide when you deserve to live or when you deserve to die? Common sense, according to Kass, says no. If we let doctors make such decisions, medicine will lose its claim to be ethical and trustworthy. Kass asks this difficult question next. How can doctors consider treating difficult to treat patients when therapeutic killing is an option? Doctors already have such terrible names and language and attitudes towards certain patients. They already call such patients gorks. This is behind the scenes. I didn't know this. I had to look it up, right? But behind the scenes, doctors do already joke about such patients. Gorks translates to God only really knows. They call other patients Gomer, get out of my emergency room. And they call some patients vegetables, those patients with terribly low brain function. It's unfortunate, Kass says, that doctors and the medical profession already has coarse attitudes towards its patients. Those three terrible words are just three examples that illustrate this attitude that some doctors already have. So might allowing medically assisted suicide sweep up other patients who aren't actually terminal? After all, they've already got terrible words for some patients. Kass reminds us of this statistic from Holland that acknowledged that 40% of doctors did euthanasia without the patient's consent, because in Holland, medically assisted suicide is already permitted. And some researchers have turned up that 40% of doctors have already killed patients without the patient's permission. Why? Because it changes their attitude towards treatment of patients. By the way, doesn't this also speak to a more contemporary example, contemporary to my life in my world in New York, in America, in 2024, such that, look at the opioid crisis in America. Why is there an opioid crisis in America? Because doctors too readily dispense this stuff. Oh, you're in pain? Sure, just take this. Just take this. Now they're starting to crack down a little bit. But why did they have to crack down? Because doctors were already too loose with handing out deadly drugs to patients. Kass points out there's a terrible asymmetry between the doctor-patient relationship. What illustrates that asymmetry? That patients must succumb to a doctor's skill, technique, and judgment. Let's go back to the definition of doctor, right? Because philosophers like talking about definitions. What is a doctor, after all? Kass asks. A doctor is someone who is there to benefit the sick by the act of healing. Thus, doctors shall never sacrifice the patient for, let's say, money or feelings of relatives or society. Let's take that one step further. Is it logical, Kass asks, to heal a patient by killing her? Of course not. Death does not heal a patient. This is always incoherent and absurd, according to Kass. A doctor who denies a patient's embodiment by killing the patient is not a doctor. A healer who kills is a self-contradiction. That is a core reason why we should not allow medically assisted suicide. Of course, we all have to acknowledge that in the end, all healing fails. What does Kass mean by this? We all die in the end. So of course, at the end, all healing must fail. So how do we deal with this? First, what we can do is hospice care. Allow a patient dignity and a peaceful path towards death. Painless path towards death. Second, we can withdraw a technological intervention, such, in popular vernacular, we might say just unplug the machine that is helping keeping this person alive. Allowing nature to take its course, Kass reminds us, is radically different from actively killing a patient. In such cases where you unplug some machine or you administer hospice care, it's the disease that kills, not the doctor. Let's go back to hospice care for a second. Hospice care is acting humanely in the presence of our impending death. To withdraw contact and affection and care, that is terribly dehumanizing. Hospice care addresses that. Hospice care keeps the patient in contact with their loved ones and nearby. Keeps the love nearby. Keeps the care nearby. In this time of death. The treatment of choice, therefore, should be company and care, not killing the patient. What about animals, though, whom we do typically put out of their misery and we euthanize? Why should we put animals out of their misery, but we should let humans suffer? That is a terrible problem. Kass has an answer to that. Animals are dumb. They don't know that they're dying. They don't live deliberately. What humanity needs in the face of death is courage. Courage to stand against the fear and the pain. A counter-argument that Kass addresses might say, wait a second, of course we should allow medically assisted suicide. Why? Because all of this medical care is dehumanizing, such as hospice care. Let me die with dignity in the way that I choose to die. Kass's response to that is, wait a second. Better than killing patients, we ought to end the dehumanizing medical practice. We should bring humanity and humane behavior back to the medical profession. We don't do that by allowing doctors to kill patients. See you next time, where we get a response to this position.